All right, folks, good morning. It is Sunday. I'm Jeff Tito Thitoff here with your update for week 2 of the fantasy football season. We'll go through each one of the games, kind of give you a quick hit on what I think on what's going on with those games. And first, I'll give you the most important injury news. There's not a lot this week going on in week 2, but Peyton Barber looks to get some carries today for the Raiders because in their game against Steelers, Josh Jacobs is out. I know Kenyon Drake is the one that you would think you'd grab, and Kenyon Drake's more than likely drafted in your leagues, but Peyton Barber will get some play today. I'm not saying he's a guy you want to pick up unless you are in absolutely dire straits, which you should not be in week 2. But if you are, Peyton Barber, I think he'll get 8 to 10 touches today in that game against Pittsburgh, but he's in there for Josh Jacobs with Kenyon Drake filling that void. Odell Beckham Jr. out again for the Browns. Should not be a surprise. Beckham seems to be out quite often in recent years. So let's roll through some of the games. The Bears taking on the Bengals today in Chicago. The biggest injury news out of that game probably is Darnell Mooney for the Bears is questionable. Looks like he'll play. Not sure what to expect out of him, though, as far as having much of an impact in that game. The Bears offense looked pretty inept unless Justin Fields gets in the game, and that would give Mooney and all this Chicago skill players a bit of a boost there. For the Bengals, I expect another big game out of Joe Mixon. I like him a lot. Liked him. I drafted him quite a bit. I own a lot of stock in Joe Mixon in fantasy this year. So Mixon's someone I like quite a bit still against Chicago. Houston's taking on Cleveland. Browns big favorites in this game. They're going to run the ball a lot, I believe, and I don't know if we'll see much out of the passing game. I think it'll be mostly a run-heavy type game for the Browns, as it usually is. For Houston, Mark Ingram coming off a 26 carries, for Houston in week 1, when I thought Phillip Lindsay would have been the guy to get more, to be like the bell cow guy for Houston. They went with Mark Ingram. He was effective. I think we'll see more of that. I don't think he'll get 26 carries. I see him in the 15 to 20 carry range. Lindsey should get some more play today. Rams taking on Indianapolis. Indy's got some injuries on defense. I think Matthew Stafford and the Rams will roll that one again. Stafford, who I've also been very high on in the preseason. Woods, Cooper Kupp, all must plays. Darrell Henderson got more of a share of the carries than I thought he would. He got almost every carry except for one in that game. Sonny Michel got in and got one touch, but I thought Michel would play a bigger role. He didn't. Darrell Henderson's still a good play for the Colts. They've got some receiver injuries. They got Pittman and Paris Campbell both dinged up. They might both play, but even so, against that Rams defense, I'm not sure what to expect out of that, or to expect much out of that Indianapolis passing game. I could see them leaning on Jonathan Taylor quite a bit and Nyheim Hines out of the backfield. Maybe not a lot of love for the receivers in Indy, but the running backs should certainly get their touches. Buffalo at Miami. Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, again, good plays. Want to see what goes on with Buffalo with their running game. It was not that effective last week against the Steelers. With Zach Moss being sidelined, we'll see if he plays today, if they activate him and let him play. Last week was just a healthy scratch. Miami, with Tua Tagovailoa he's still a bit of an anomaly for me. I want to see what he can do in this game against a very strong Bills defense. So we're watching for that one as well. But for Buffalo, again, Devin Singletary is probably the best play on that one. Myles Gaskin for Miami. Again, he's going to struggle today. I don't expect a big game out of Myles Gaskin. New England's at New York. The most interesting part about this game is I want to see what New England does with their running back rotation. We've seen Bill Belichick before react very sternly to guys when they have turnovers. And Stevenson for New England had an early turnover and then pretty much disappeared. Damian Harris had a late turnover that really cost them the game, although Harris was very effective up until that point. I think Harris still will be the guy. I think Harris will still get 20 touches in that offense. But again, you want to watch see what Belichick does, see how he's going to respond to turnovers, especially late in the game that costs the team a game. Then you've got the Jets on their side of the ball. Zach Wilson at his moments. Zach Wilson and Corey Davis looks like they have a decent connection there. I don't trust anybody in the Jets running game. But Zach Wilson, though, someone to watch, not start, someone to watch, though, and see how he progresses. Now he's got a home game against the Patriots. San Francisco's at Philadelphia. Which San Francisco team is real? Is it the one with the Eli Harris that jumped out to a huge lead against Detroit last week, or are they the one that had the offense kind of stall after that and let Detroit back into the game? Trey Sermon should be active this week. I guess he's had a great week of practice. after being a healthy scratch last week. He'll get some carries too, but Harris is the guy there this week. I still start him. I got to believe we're going to see more out of Brandon Ayuk. He invisible last week, but I think they're going to work to get him the ball this week. Jalen Hurts is a big game for him. This San Francisco defense is no joke, and even though they gave all those points to Detroit, they're still a very talented unit. Jalen Hurts was really good last week. I have not been a big Jalen Hurts guy, but if he can have a good game against San Francisco today, he might change my mind on that one. Las Vegas is at Pittsburgh. Derek Carr had a monster game as far as yardage-wise goes against Baltimore in that overtime thriller, and I want to see what they're going to do. I talked about the running back situation already, and the receivers, they spread around quite a bit. Darren Waller, though, is the one who gets the lion's share of those touches. He had, 19 targets last week, which is amazing. Only finished with 10 catches, but I say only because if you have 19 targets, your tight end, I would expect 13 or 14 catches out of him. I think you'll see a lot more of that. Pittsburgh will try to neutralize that. On Pittsburgh's side of the ball, Najee Harris, I want to see him get going this week against that Vegas. Vegas was really good against the pass, put a lot of pressure last week on Lamar Jackson and forced him to do some things against the depleted Ravens offensive line. Pittsburgh's offensive line is going to get their test today against that Vegas team. As far as the receivers go, Chase Claypool should turn it around at some point. Chase Claypool is very much a all or nothing type receiver. He's going to have a great game or have a zero game as far as I'm concerned. I still love Deontay Johnson. Juju Smith-Schuster, especially in a PPR league, still has value. Chase Claypool is a fringe starter for me in a lot of cases. Depends how deep your league is, but I'm not expecting great things out of Chase Claypool this week. Moving on to New Orleans against Carolina, there's no way Jameis Winston throws for 5 touchdown passes on 148 yards again. So he will throw for more yards, but fewer touchdowns. What I want to see is how he does as far as his turnovers. If he could avoid the turnovers again, that would be amazing based on his previous experience with Tampa Bay his last season when he had 30 interceptions. So I'm watching New Orleans there. I want to see a better game out of Alvin Kamara also. On the Carolina side, Sam Darnold has not exercised all of his demons yet by far, but certainly took some steps in the right direction last week, and having Christian McCaffrey really helps him out quite a bit. Robbie Anderson, I think he'll get more involved in the offense this week, so we'll see what happens there with that Carolina team, though. But yeah, obviously McCaffrey is the must start on that team. I'm still going to play, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, especially in deeper leagues. Moving on to Denver at Jacksonville. Denver had the unfortunate injury to Jerry Jeudy, meaning Cortland Sutton is going to have a lot more value now. And I think that really whose value increases the most is probably Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, a great receiver out of the backfield. I think they're going to continue to use him in that regard. And, he's still got some left in the tank. I had a big run for Denver last week. And I like him quite a bit still. So I believe he is the one to start. If you have to choose between him and Javonte Williams, he's the one to start. They'll both be close, so Javonte Williams will certainly get some play as well. Jacksonville. My big concern with Jacksonville is I expected Urban Meyer to get James Robinson much more involved in that game, and he didn't. James Robinson got out-touched by Carlos Hyde, a former Ohio State player, under Urban Meyer. It's not what's best for the Jacksonville offense. James Robinson is a much better talent than Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde should be a change of pace back, should be maybe a goal line back, but James Robinson has to get more touches in this offense this week. For Jacksonville to have any chance against Denver, which they probably don't have any anyway, but James Robinson was grossly underused last week in the loss to Houston. I know he fell behind, and that may have played some part in it, but still, James Robinson is better than Carlos Hyde in every aspect of the game, so that surprised me. Minnesota's at Arizona. Dalvin Cook will have another big game. I know Arizona's defense has improved this year, but he'll have another big game. Adam Thielen will get more targets in the red zone, as he usually does, and Justin Jefferson should get his numbers as well. Other than that, there's no must start on that Minnesota side of the ball. Arizona, Kyler Murray, by the way, looked really good last week, and we'll see how he does this week at home. He should have a big game again. As far as the running game goes, I think a Chase Edmonds, James Conner split is forthcoming. More of a 50-50 type thing again. Edmonds will get the ball early, and then I think Conner can be more of a goal line back for them this week. And, Arizona's got so many weapons. Look at Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk. and see which one is the best complement to DeAndre Hopkins. Last week it was Christian Kirk. This week I'm not sure who it'll be. If I had to pick between the two, I think that Christian Kirk will have the better game. Rondale Moore's got a higher ceiling, though. Atlanta's at Tampa Bay. The Atlanta offense was putrid last week, and Matt Ryan, it seems he aged quite a bit. Now, he's got a chance to bounce back this week because he's going to have to throw the ball a lot against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay will be ahead most of the game, I have to believe, and that'll force Atlanta to throw the ball, which probably hurts Mike Davis's stats. I want to see more out of Kyle Pitts, Justin Gage, for sure. I need to see more out of him. And also, Calvin Ridley, who I still think could lead the NFL in receiving yards this year. We'll be back in just a moment, talk about Tampa Bay, and then the remaining 4 games on the schedule.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us, and then listen in.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Powell, co-host of the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast. Check us out anywhere you listen to podcasts. For all your Browns coverage, post-game, pre-game, anything you need Browns, you'll find it here on the Oranges, Oranger, Browns podcast.
All right, we're back. Tampa Bay now. Their game against Atlanta. Now, Tom Brady, I don't think he will mimic his stats from last week in the opener against Dallas, but he'll have another big game. I got to believe Atlanta's defense still a work in progress. And as far as the receivers go, Mike Evans was non-existent in the game against Dallas. It was a Curtis Godwin, Antonio Brown, even Rob Gronkowski show. I think that'll be the same kind of theme this week as far as the receivers go for Tampa Bay. I'm not expecting a big game out of Evans. I think Godwin, Antonio Brown, although Brown won't be as good as he was last week as far as his numbers go. Godwin will be 1. I think Brown 2, Gronk 3, Evans 4 again. And when you look at the running backs for Tampa Bay, I don't trust any of them. I really don't. I would rather not start any Tampa Bay running back. Bruce Arians came out and said that Ronald Jones, despite fumbling early on in that game last week against Dallas, he said, Ronald Jones is my starter and he's ready. I don't think it matters who the starter is. I do think Gio Bernard will get more looks out of the backfield as a pass catcher, but I'm not starting any Tampa Bay running back this week if I can avoid it. That's just not an ideal situation with the Buccaneers. Dallas and the Chargers. This is an interesting game. Chargers have got some offensive line issues. We'll start with Dallas. Dak Prescott looked like the old Dak Prescott against Tampa Bay. It looked great. Zeke Elliott, not so much. I think they'll try to reestablish Zeke this week against the Chargers, see if they can get him going early on. He again, did not have many carries last week. I think he ended up with 10 or 11 carries is all he had in the offense for the Cowboys. So I think we'll see more of that from him. They'll try to get him the ball more often. As far as the receivers go, I understand that Amari Cooper had a big game last week as far as number of targets and receptions. I still like CeeDee Lamb more. Michael Gallup being out probably hurts Cooper or helps Cooper though as well. So CeeDee Lamb and Cooper will again be the top 2 receivers there, and Cooper, I don't think he'll lead the team in receptions this week. For the Chargers, Mike Williams looked like Michael Thomas out there in their game. A lot of intermediate passes that he was able to catch, got a lot of targets, got a touchdown, and Keenan Allen also. It's a very dangerous passing attack with those receivers. Now the issue though, for Justin Herbert's still a start this week. He's a fringe start, but he's a start. In a 12-team league. I've got him as a must-start in a 12-team league. But when you look at the receivers, also, again, Allen, Mike Williams, both starts. You're going to start Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, though, amazingly last week, had 0 targets. And that's where his value is. Austin Eckler's value is in receptions out of the backfield. And the fact he had no targets, they still won the game, which is great, but Austin Eckler needs to get targets for his value to increase. If he doesn't get targets, if it happens again this week, I'll start to be concerned. The Chargers have changed the offense up a little bit. Anthony Lynn, the former head coach who loved throwing to Austin Eckler, is now the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. We'll talk about the Lions shortly. He was the head coach last year with the Chargers. He's gone. And I hope there was a 1 week aberration as far as Austin Eckler goes, because where he was drafted, especially in PPR leagues, that's his value. Tennessee taking on Seattle, another one of the late afternoon games in the NFL. Tennessee's offense last week, Derrick Henry never got going, and I don't think we're going this week against Seattle either. You're going to start him because he's your RB1 if you drafted him, but I am not high on Derrick Henry at all this week. I think he's going to underperform, so not that excited about him. As far as the Titans' passing game goes, Tannehill struggled last week. Julio Jones didn't do much last week. A.J. Brown will still get his, but that it's a tough environment for Tennessee to go into the Seattle game, and I could see them dropping 0-2 and see Tannehill struggling, Brown struggling, Jones struggling, and also obviously Derrick Henry. On the other side of the ball, Seattle, they've got Russell Wilson. When he's on like that, like he was last week, he's fun to watch. And Chris Carson, I don't think he'll have a big game against Tennessee. I think it'll be a Russell Wilson-led attack for Seattle. And Tyler Lockett will get very much involved there as well again. As far as if you're looking for a tight end, over there in Seattle now, if you're looking for a tight end, it's usually because you neglected it far too late in your draft. And so you've probably got a guy who's going to be touchdown dependent. And Gerald Everett is that tight end who's touchdown dependent in Seattle. If you need a tight end, he's somebody you can stream. If you're in a league where you stream tight ends, didn't draft like a strong one. I'm not saying he's a start in most leagues. I'm saying he's a stream option if you need a tight end for some reason. And again, early in the season, not a lot of injuries to tight ends, so it shouldn't matter. But if you do need a tight end, Gerald Everett's someone who I think has a chance to get in the end zone again. He's not going to get a lot of catches, but he might end up with a 3 for 30 and a touchdown type game, and that might be what you need to push you over the top in your game this week. Kansas City takes on Baltimore in the Sunday night game, a great matchup on paper. Baltimore's had so many injuries along the offensive line, in the backfield, on defense. So it's going to take a Herculean effort for Baltimore to compete here. Kansas City, you're going to start your regular guys. Mahomes, you're going to start Tyreek Hill. You're going to start Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're going to start, obviously, Travis Kelce. All those guys are going to have big games again, I think. Baltimore's defense is not what it used to be, and Kansas City should be able to exploit that. Kansas City will have no problem putting a lot of points on the board. On Baltimore's side, the running back situation is what's most interesting to me to see how they dole out the carries in this one, because last week last week Tyson Williams I thought looked the best of the bunch for Baltimore. I think he was their most effective running back. Latavius Murray I know got the carries down the stretch. The reason for that, Tyson Williams, there were some looked like uncomfortable exchanges, him and Lamar Jackson, on handoffs, and he also missed on a couple of assignments, I think, when he was supposed to block somebody, little pass blocking issues there. That, I think, is why Latavius Murray got in the game late. Tyson Williams has the highest ceiling among all the running backs that are healthy on Baltimore's roster. They've activated Devonta Freeman. I know still have Le'Veon Bell on the practice squad, but I think Tyson Williams, if you have to own a running back in Baltimore, that's still the one I'm going to start. I'm going to go with him. Lamar Jackson looked fantastic last week. He was running for his life quite a bit. Kansas City is going to try to do the same thing with him. In Baltimore, Sammy Watkins seemed to have a bit of a connection there with Lamar Jackson. It's a revenge game of sorts, I guess, for Sammy Watkins. He is someone I would consider in the flex position, but he, again, is going to be a boom or bust type guy for Baltimore. They could be throwing the ball a lot late because of the fact they might be trailing Kansas City. Detroit, Green Bay, Monday night game. The Lions last week they rallied late after they were already out of the game, but they rallied late and actually had a chance against San Francisco to tie the game up, but fell just a little bit short. And Jared Goff was okay. The receivers were okay, nothing great. DeAndre Swift is still, I know he's questionable for this week. We'll see how he does, but he was questionable he didn't practice most of training camp, but I still think he can have a big game for them because he does add that element of catching passes out of the backfield. Jamal Williams for Detroit also is a potential play for them. Jamal Williams was good last week. we'll see how they play against Green Bay this week. But those are the only two, as far as running backs go, those are guys I'm considering for Detroit. Green Bay, they've got to bounce back. What happened last week against the Saints was embarrassing. If they have another poor showing at home on a Monday night with the extra day to prepare against the Lions, if they have another poor showing, I'll be very concerned about that Packers offense and where they go from there. The defense, I've streamed their defense in a couple of leagues. I think that Green Bay's got a chance to force some turnovers from Jared Goff in that one. And as far as the offense goes, I mean, look, I was never high on Randall Cobb, I should say. So I'm not that. I don't think he's going to have a monster year, even though Aaron Rodgers wanted him in there. But, you're still starting Rodgers, starting Jones, and you're starting Devontae Adams. We'll see what happens after that. I think that the Packers should roll in this game. You might see a garbage touchdown late from like a Robert Tonyan, but Tonyan obviously is not going to repeat last year's 10-touchdown season. So that's what I've got for this week. Good luck in week 2. Don't overreact. We've got a long season ahead of us. Follow me on Twitter @ThatHappens. If you have any questions about your lineup today, let me know. I'm more than happy to get back to you. But @ThatHappens on Twitter. This has been the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.